there are some industries that are just different in terms of what they're required to do by law. You know, what are some of the, and I think Lance's would be right in your sweet spot, what are some of the particular issues and challenges that healthcare industries have to face? And we all know about HIPAA, which is kind of economy, right? You have all this protection of data, and yet I go to Drug Mart and it says you can't stand 5 feet behind somebody, but I can hear them putting their name out and the drugs they're getting, so it's kind of ridiculous. But what are some of the things that, you know, healthcare pharmaceuticals that are just different than everybody else have to contend with?
Yeah, you know, it's really interesting, especially in those two markets. The differences really do not allow them to leverage a lot of tools that the rest of the world needs. So in the healthcare market, it's kind of the obvious. So imagine you're a physician, and sitting on Facebook is a picture from 5 years ago of you doing a keg stand at your bachelor party. And a patient go ahead and search, and you're getting ready to do surgery tomorrow. You might intellectually understand that was 5 years ago, that was a different context, but this guy's about to cut me open, and here's a picture of him doing a keg stand on Facebook. And so a lot of the medical liability, imagine being a physician and trying to discuss a case. Gee, I think I'm going to prescribe this for even if it's John Doe. Imagine being a malpractice attorney and having access to that type of information. And so in healthcare, there is a strong degree of reticence for health professionals especially to embrace these types of tools because of that lack of understanding, familiarity. It wasn't how they were trained. They all typically went to school for 8 to 12 years. And so that's really a big barrier to overcome, both technology-wise, making sure you meet standards, but also socially. Socially meaning how you communicate and interact with that audience. In the pharmaceutical world, it's actually interesting. So the BP oil spill, which everyone I think knows about, BP was fined a total of $90 million for that oil spill by the government. That was the kind of fines that they received. Pfizer, which is the largest pharmaceutical company in the world, for one of their 40-something drugs, for mishandling how they marketed that one drug, they were fined $2 billion the year before last. The FDA places incredible restrictions on how doctors are able to interact with pharmaceutical companies. When you see a Lipitor commercial on TV and there's a nice healthy guy saying, "Lipitor saved my life," you can't go to Walmart and buy your own Lipitor. What that is an interesting way to try to get you to walk into your doctor's office and ask for Lipitor. And so the FDA places extreme restrictions on how they can interact, how pharma companies interact with doctors. Regulations like off-label, adverse event, there's a whole list, and the fines are extreme. And so the environments you build to help drug development, to help clinical trials, to help with advice on warnings and things like that are extremely specific. And if you approach them from a technology, let me throw some technology out there and see what happens, it will never see the light of day. And so what we find in our business is we work directly with the business side of what we do because of those restrictions, because of those policies in those different organizations, and the social systems that get put in place around those use cases from the ground up have to be extraordinarily tightly integrated, both technology and process.
And how does that happen? I mean, what, you go through some kinds of needs analysis with clients, or what kind of walk us through that?
Sure. In our role, what we've done is we're closer to a company that sells social applications than we are, here's a social toolkit, load it up and knock yourself out. And so we understand very well what happens when you're running a multi-site clinical trial for a new drug. What type of interactions happen between physicians and nurses who are involved in that clinical trial and the government in that clinical trial. And so our solutions, what we've done working with our clients is really try to pull the business context, the business rules into the actual platform, how it's rolled out. And we also do a lot of work. And the interesting thing about social, there's one thing which I think Jim and Tim have both agreed that you can try to do, which is let me throw a capability out in the enterprise and see who picks it up, and have it be completely organic and kind of almost ignore any of the structure of the organization. And that, in a business context, is pretty challenging. The other side of it, though, is what you can do is you can start out and kind of embrace that right from the get-go and understand that those are the realities. And a lot of the rollout or success factors have to do with communication to the people who are going to use those systems. In my past, I used to work for IBM, and we could roll out a system, let's say it was a CRM system or a Tivoli system or whatever it was, you could kind of order the employees, you must use the system. And then there was this race between the pain of how mad they are using the system versus the time you could get it good enough where they liked it. Before, and then depending who won is how well the system would survive in the next couple of years. In this world, most of these scenarios are voluntary. And so the ability for you to roll out these types of communication paradigms in a context that is understandable by the business people using that to solve a problem. In our world, doctors don't want to get a private Facebook. You say, would you like to use a private Facebook? They say, absolutely not, I'm too busy, I'm seeing 70 patients a week. Ask them, would you like an easier way to access specialists at the hospital that you work at? Then you start getting a yes. And if you roll such a system out, that is how it's being communicated out. A system for easier communication and dialogue with other researchers or other physicians as opposed to